Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Media Warrior. We're on Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 8, No One. Now this episode is going to really polarise the audience and the fans, I think. There's a lot in it that's very weak. And there's some stuff in it that's very good. So it's going to be one of those episodes, I think, where people are going to like some of it, but hate other stuff. Or at least that's how I'm feeling. We start off with Sandor Clegane, the Hound, again, hunting down the men of the Brotherhood who slaughtered his friends, and Ian McShane's character last episode. Now he comes upon these four guys, members of the Brotherhood, or we assume they're members of the Brotherhood. He doesn't exactly stop and take names. He just walks into this small group of four men and cuts them all down in a very violent, efficient and Hound-like manner. And as per normal, the Hound gets a couple of really good lines. It's like he says to one guy, "You don't die well," and then slams his axe through his head. But that's the Hound for you. But then he marches on, and we come upon Beric Dondarrion still alive, which puts to rest a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy theories that we're going to be coming up against Lady Stoneheart, the resurrected Catelyn Stark. Now, I suppose it's possible they might still try and fit that in there somewhere. I don't think they will now. I mean, if they brought Beric back for this one, Beric and Thoros have both come back for this episode, there really isn't any need to bring back Catelyn now. I think they'll probably just go with Beric for the remainder of the show. Why overcomplicate things? And that's the thing with this season, Season 6, it's been very uncomplicated. We've had 5 seasons, of Game of Thrones that has got all of the fans thinking so hard and coming up with all these tin hat theories about what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. And throughout 5 seasons, they normally always either pull the rug out from under our feet and go in a totally different direction, surprise us, and that makes us happy and makes us think even harder. Or they give us what we thought, but they give it us in such a way that it's big, it's epic, it's fantastic to watch on screen knowing you were right. This season, they seem to have played it very straight. There's hardly been any sort of U-turns, any 45-degree angle shots, any quick turning this way and that one with the plot. Yeah, everyone's been second-guessing as they have done every other season, and we've all been coming up short. For example, last episode when Arya gets stabbed, and then all the theories that were out there, hundreds of theories were out there, about, oh, she's not Arya, it's Jaqen, it's the Waif, it's all these theories. We'll get to that down the road. But I'm just saying, as an example, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one, and that has been borne out by this season, unfortunately, which has made it one of the weakest seasons, in my opinion, that they've aired. And obviously it's the first season where a majority of the plot has gone away from the books. So you've got to ask yourself, now they're not using the books as their template, is the show suffering? We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, back to the Hound. The Hound, Beric, have a bit of a negotiation. He's got 3 men on stools hanging from a tree, ready to be hung, or ready to be hanged. And I'm assuming these are the 3 men that we see right up to Ian McShane's group in the last episode. So whether the 4 men that the Hound butchered previously at the beginning of this episode are anything to do with the slaughter of that village, we don't know. He could have just been cutting down Brotherhood members left, right and centre until he found the 3 men he was after. So the question, is Beric going to say, well, no, hang on a minute, you've just killed 4 of my guys and they were totally innocent, they had nothing to do with that massacre. You got to answer for that. Or was just, don't worry about it, it's fine, I know you're a mate, we won't worry about it. It just seems a bit weird that, Beric would just let that slide, assuming he knows about it. He might not know about it. Well, I'm sure they'll wonder, why have these 4 guys not reappeared? Where have they gone? Just wandered off and disappeared? But it was nice to see them talking to the Hound while they're having lunch, you know, trying to get him to join the Brotherhood, and hopefully he will. But if he does that mean he's going to go north? Because it looked like Beric was angling to head north and fight the White Walkers, the oncoming threat that he knows about. So that we'll have to wait and see. But then we slide over to Riverrun and the ongoing siege, and Brienne and Pod arrive and...
My name is Brienne of Tarth.
Please inform Sir Jaime Lannister I've come to speak with him.
Pod's phenomenal military mind points out to Brienne that, oh, it looks like there's a siege. Yeah, well done, Pod. He gets some of the good lines as well, some of the one-liners. But it was nice to see him once again in the company of Bronn, and that's all like mucking around that Bronn and Pod had back in King's Landing, where it was like the three musketeers with Tyrion, Bronn and Pod were all hanging out in King's Landing, and the fun that they had. So it was nice to see those two characters back together again. So that was fun. But then obviously Brienne meeting with Jaime. Now this is what I was saying about some of the scenes that are still in this season that are from the book. And this was, the whole Riverrun was pretty much, a few minor differences, but pretty much what was written in the book. So Jaime meeting Brienne again, and you see that undercurrent of emotion between them, the connection that they have.
You gave it to me for a purpose. I have achieved that purpose.
It's yours. It will always be yours.
And Jaime has been on a very deep and probably dark journey for himself since the beginning of the show, and I think we're all pretty much hoping that he's going to become a good guy. Yeah, okay, he pushed Bran out of a window in episode 1. That was evil Jaime. But he seems to have been heading towards redemption throughout the show, slowly getting closer and closer and closer, and Brienne has been one of the major parts of that redemption. She has touched on him something that he sees in her, something that he wants to be, an honourable knight. And I think despite everything he does, everything he says, deep inside him, that's what he wants to be. But he's never really been given the chance. He had to kill the Mad King to save King's Landing during the rebellion with Robert Baratheon. And that sort of marred his name from now on. Nobody trusts him. Everyone calls him the Kingslayer. Yeah, he's got that hanging over him throughout his entire life now. Everything he does, people are going to look at him on that and not trust him. And so it's hard for him to reach the levels or bring out in himself the levels of knighthood and honourable behaviour that I think he really wants to do. And really the only person who ever accepts his word is Brienne. Everybody else is second guessing him. Everyone else is thinking, it's Jaime Lannister, you can't trust that guy, he killed the king. Brienne is the only one who, if Jaime says to her, look, you have my word, she will take him at his word. And Jaime would do it, whereas he might backstab somebody else who he's given his word to. I don't think he would do it with Brienne. He holds her in too high regard, too much esteem to do that to her. Now, is there a romantic element to it? Once again, there's that undercurrent. There's that. What he has, he obviously loves his sister. He obviously loves Cersei. But I think it's the two types of love we have going on here. With Cersei, it's all passion and fire, and like a flash in a pan. You know, when they're together, their emotions always seem to be heightened, and they're sparks, and they're flying at each other. But with Brienne, it's almost like it's a deeper, more solid, more dependable love. That if he wasn't in love with Cersei, you could see that almost when he looks at her sometimes, you can see the conflict within him, that he could see himself being with Brienne, you know, and making a life with her because he can trust her. She gets him. She gets what he wants to be. And with her, he can be who he wants to be, possibly the real Jaime Lannister. That his father's always tried to twist, Cersei's always tried to twist to their own gains, And Jaime's always wanted to be the honourable knight, and with Brienne he can be that. So how this will play out, I don't know, but I really hope we get more scenes between them. Obviously at the end you see her being rowed away from Riverrun after it's been taken by the Lannisters, and Jaime can quite easily, as he's standing on the battlements watching her be rowed away, he could quite easily call his men and have her captured. Instead he just watches her row away and waves goodbye, and she waves goodbye, and it's a very touching moment. And it's like he understands that although she's probably going north, and at the moment although Sansa Stark and Jon Snow aren't his enemies per se, Brienne's going to go and join them. But Brienne isn't his enemy, and possibly never will be his enemy, even though Brienne said earlier in the episode that if I go into Riverrun and you attack, we will be fighting on opposite sides. And he said, no, I know that. I understand. It's an understanding born of honour. He understands that she has to live up to her oaths and her honour to fight for the people that she has sworn an oath to, same as he has to do, fight for the people he's sworn an oath to in his family. So there's no animosity between them. But how Riverrun was taken, although as I say it's very true to the books in that in the books Jaime does take Riverrun without a fight. He convinces the Blackfish to surrender Riverrun to save Edmure's life. In this, he convinces Edmure to go into Riverrun as he is the Lord of Riverrun. Blackfish isn't. Blackfish is his uncle, but the castle belongs to Edmure. So the men in it are his men. So Jaime convinces Edmure to go into the castle and get his men to surrender. And they will all live, or we assume they will live. We've seen them marching out. We assume they're not going to get slaughtered, but we don't know. But it's one of those scenes where you're watching it and you're thinking, you see Edmure go up to the battlements, talking to his men, telling them to surrender, to open the drawbridge and let the Lannisters in. And by this time, the Blackfish, despite all of his arguments, which are valid arguments, when he was telling the captain there on the battlements, ignore what Edmure's saying. He's got a knife to his throat. If you obey him, you're obeying Jaime Lannister. You're obeying the Kingslayer. You're not obeying your lord. You're obeying the people who want into this castle. You're obeying the enemy. And yet the captain, because he's so loyal, even though he knows it's the wrong decision, because he swore an oath to the Tully family and to the head of the castle, which is Edmure, he lets Edmure in, and then he surrenders the castle on Edmure's orders. Although the last look that the captain gives to Edmure, when Edmure says to him, lower the drawbridge, order the men to surrender, you can see how the captain feels betrayed, and he's probably like an inch away from stabbing the guy. It's like, you know, I've stood up for you with the Blackfish, and now you're basically just giving it all away for nothing. So that was a bit of a weak scene, but like I say, it's similar. They've changed it slightly, but it's similar to the books. But in the books, the Blackfish escapes. In this, we assume he dies. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, we didn't see the body, so perhaps he did escape. The same as I said with Stannis Baratheon, when they said, well, nobody saw Brienne deliver the killing blow. Perhaps Stannis is still alive. Well, we're now all pretty sure that Stannis is dead. The Blackfish died off screen, but I don't think he's alive. He didn't, when he left Brienne and Pod at the boat, he was ready to die. He was ready to basically commit suicide by Lannister. He wanted to go out there, fight to the death, and have an honourable death. And it was reported to Jaime on the battlements that the Blackfish had been killed. Now, if the Blackfish hadn't died in a fight, if he had escaped, then why didn't he escape with Brienne and Pod in the boat? Why go for all that? No, I'm too old. I haven't had a decent sword fight in ages. I'm gonna go and fight the Lannisters. You two escape. Why did he go for all that if he was just gonna escape somehow later? No. So I think the Blackfish is dead. There's been some discussion about how Jaime is behaving in these few scenes. When he's in the tent with Edmure, and Edmure's tied to that post. There's been some people saying that, this is the Jaime from season 1. This is the evil Jaime. This is the bad Jaime, because he's threatening to catapult Edmure's baby boy over the battlements and kill all the Tullys so he can get back to Cersei. I don't think that was evil Jaime. I think that was tactical Jaime. Jaime's not stupid. He knows how people see him. He knows how Edmure sees him. Edmure sees him as an incest-loving Lannister braggart who is possibly a little bit touched in the head and who does terrible things to people who he captures. Now, that would be true a few seasons back. But as I said earlier, Jaime has matured and changed since then. But it's still an arrow in the quiver that Jaime can use against his enemies. If his enemies are going to underestimate him by using how he used to be, then why not let them? And that point where you see Jaime and the Frey sitting side by side on their horses outside Riverrun, and the Frey brother turns to Jaime and says, "I hope you're right in thinking that what Edmure is going to do." And Jaime just sort of like looks at him, and then the drawbridge starts to lower, and Jaime smiles and they ride forward. It was all a gamble. He sent Edmure in there with the knowledge, or Edmure thought the knowledge, that if Edmure doesn't deliver that castle, Jaime's going to kill his wife, he's going to kill his son, he's going to kill every Tully he can get his hands on. So to Edmure's way of thinking, he is saving all of these people. And I think Jaime was using tactics. I don't think he's evil Jaime anymore. I don't think that was evil Jaime talking. I think that was just Jaime, the battlefield commander, the diplomat, the person who thinks things through, thinking, if you're going to think I'm that crazy and nutty, fine, I can use that to get what I want from you. So that was good. That's how I read the scene. I could be totally wrong. Perhaps Jaime is still a bit of a nutter, but after the scene you saw with him and Brienne in the tent, where Brienne was trying to give him the sword back, Oathkeeper, and he said, "No, it's yours. It's always going to be yours." That just makes me think that he is becoming a really good person. Now, what could happen next? Anything. In the books, again, as I said last episode, he finds out that Cersei cheated on him with Lancel, their cousin, and so he abandons Cersei. And he heads north with Brienne. Now, in the show, he's taken Riverrun. We don't know if he's going to find out that Cersei slept with Lancel. Brienne's already left. She's heading north again. What might happen, and this will be handled probably a little bit further on in my list of things that happened in this episode, but here's a theory, that at the end of a particular scene in King's Landing, after the king has made his speech, and you have Qyburn and Cersei standing together, and they're talking about a rumour, and Qyburn says, "Yes, much more. Is there any substance to the rumour?" I think is what Cersei asks him, and Qyburn says, "Yes, much more than we thought." What if that, and this is a theory that's being floated, what if the rumour is about wildfire? Tyrion had a load of wildfire made for the Battle of Blackwater that he used some of, but he might not have used all of it. So what if there's still a store of wildfire somewhere in the keep, or under the keep in King's Landing? Now, what if Cersei decides to use that as Plan Z? She's got nowhere else to go. She's at the end of her tether. She doesn't know what to do. So she uses the wildfire to either blow up the Sept of Baelor or try and blow up King's Landing. I don't know. And what if, in doing that, Tommen dies? I think she's already resigned herself to the fact that Tommen's going to die, because the prophecy that she was told when she was a young girl, that all of her children would die before her. So to her mind, perhaps Tommen's already dead. And if he dies, and this is assuming this all goes as I'm saying, but it's a theory, but if she does blow up the Sept, to get rid of the High Sparrow and all of his men, and somehow Tommen dies as well, Jaime would never forgive her. That'd be the most unforgivable thing she could do. So despite how much he might love her, I think that might be the crack that would break them apart and would give him the ability to go north maybe and join up with Brienne. Then we could have a love triangle between Brienne, Jaime and Tormund. Wow. What a love triangle that would be. Now over in Meereen we see Varys and Tyrion heading down to the docks. Varys is leaving, going back to Westeros. Now we're assuming that he's going back, well we know he's going back to try and get some allies for Daenerys' eventual return to Westeros. But where can he go? I mean, he doesn't actually say, but to my mind there's only one place in Westeros that Varys could go to get allies, and that is Dorne. Daenerys is going to need somewhere to be able to land all of her troops without resistance, and the only place that could happen is Dorne, because Dorne's the only one of the Seven Kingdoms who isn't openly currently really at war with the Lannisters. If Daenerys tries to land anywhere north of Dorne or King's Landing, she could unite the Seven Kingdoms and they could all fight her on the beaches, a bit like D-Day. So it would be easier for if Varys can get Dorne to side with Daenerys, then land all of her army with the Dornes, and then the Dornish army can join them, and then they can all head north and attack King's Landing. Another great big battle. There we go. But then we waste, well I say waste, I mean it's a fun scene, but considering how much stuff they've got to go through with characters and plot points in this season, and how fast the season is going, and the fact that the next 2 seasons are only going to be 6 episodes long, not 10, they waste another few minutes with Tyrion, Grey Worm and Missandei just having some wine and trying to tell jokes. I mean, okay, it was a fun scene, but was it really necessary? Was it really needed? I don't think so. They could have either cut it down or not had it at all, and you wouldn't have lost anything for it. But then obviously the masters of Slaver's Bay turn up and break up the pleasantries with their fleet appearing on the horizon and sailing into the harbour before they start bombarding Meereen. Now obviously, according to the Missandei, they are there to reclaim their property, the slaves that are in Meereen, and they do this by bombarding the city with fireballs. How many of their slaves are going to be left after the city's gone down in flames, I wonder. But anyway, it's a great visual and a great effects when we see that, and we actually get a really good shot of the pyramid, and we get to see how big that damn thing is. It's a huge pyramid. It's actually fantastically huge compared to the rest of the city. I don't think we've ever really seen that perspective of it before, so that was a pretty cool scene. But then the return of Daenerys is a little bit underwhelming. She gets dropped off on a balcony by Drogon and walks in as all the Unsullied kneel before her, and she looks like a pissed off mother coming back from having left the kids alone at the house for a while, and comes back to find it's in a total mess and she's got to pick everything up. But in the background we see Drogon flapping around. Now, what I think would have been better if she'd obviously just flown into Meereen and seen all these ships bombarding her city. Why didn't she just flame them? You know, is that going to happen next? Are we going to see it on camera, or is this something else that's going to happen off camera? This season, perhaps more than any other, seems to be cost-cutting wherever they can. And as I said previously, the fact that the next 2 seasons are only 6 episodes long, it really makes me wonder whether HBO's heart just isn't in it anymore. They seem to be... They've obviously got to be cutting the budget here. Otherwise, why aren't the next 2 seasons 10 episodes? It's not that they haven't got the story to tell. They have got too much story to tell, not enough time. We don't get the big battle sequences we're teased. They just get either done off camera, or they just don't happen at all because it gets talked out. And it's getting to the point now where it's just so frustrating. I mean, yes, we saw Drogon, I think it was last episode or the episode before, we get a full shot of Drogon on Daenerys on his back. Okay, fantastic. That cost a lot of money on CGI. I get it. But we want to see Drogon flaming those ships out in the harbour. You know, and you don't even really need to see the dragon itself. You could just see men looking up, or a downward shot of the ships, and then fire maybe, but I suppose that's going to all be CGI, so that would be expensive. But it's a shame when we're talking about Game of Thrones and we're saying that there are deficiencies in the plot and in the story and in the show, and it's down to money. We really expect more of HBO. They've got to be raking it in. This is the most successful show on TV right now, possibly in history, and they're just hindering it. They're tying its arms behind its back. They're cutting the budgets, and it's just starting to hit. And it would be a shame if such a fantastic show like this goes out with a whimper because HBO aren't prepared to put up the money to keep it to the same standards we've expected and have maintained for the last 5 seasons. But once again, we'll have to wait and see. Finally get to see the Mountain in action at long last as the Faith Militant get into the Red Keep to come and claim Cersei, to be taken to the Sept of Baelor to meet with the High Sparrow. And we have cousin Lancel in the front with his little group of monks with their clubs. And Cersei obviously delivers the line that we've seen in trailers before, that she chooses violence, and we get to see violence. You know, we obviously find out a little bit more about the Mountain because one of the Faith Militant slams that club into his chest with those 2 huge spikes that would have cleaved his chest, would have gone right into it if it had been a normal human, because those are designed to puncture through metal armour, just as they did on the show tonight. And that would have, if not killed, would have severely maimed a normal man. And he didn't even flinch. You know, he didn't even try, and he just stood there and let the man trying to get the thing out of his chest plate. When he eventually did grab him and throttle him with one hand, lifting him off his feet, and then just wrenched his head off. Yeah, and we're definitely talking about some sort of Frankenstein here. How are you going to kill something like that? It seems to be the question now, because obviously normal means aren't going to work. Perhaps beheading him might do the trick, I suppose. But other than that, I really don't know what else they're going to use. But it once again underlines Cersei's weakness now in King's Landing. You know, she asks, how did the Faith Militant get into the Red Keep? Well, the king let them in. She can't depend on her son anymore. She has no control over him. He's now being controlled by Marjorie and the High Sparrow. So with Cersei, she's got nobody on her side other than Qyburn and the Mountain. And that's pretty much it. Now, if Qyburn has control of some wildfire, as I said earlier, then that's a huge ace in the hole for her. But would she really be that desperate that she would try and blow up a portion of King's Landing just to get her way, just to kill the Sparrow? I mean, that's desperation for you right there. But we get to see Tommen in the main hall, sitting on his throne, and he banishes Cersei to the gallery with the other women. She can no longer stand by his side when he's sitting on the throne. Although you do see that Mace Tyrell is there, Kevan Lannister is there, Maester Pycelle is there. They're all up, standing next to the king. But no, Cersei unfortunately is banished to the gallery. And he deprives her of her one winning move with the Trial of Combat.
The Crown has decided that from this day forward, trial by combat will be forbidden throughout the 7 kingdoms.
So she can no longer use the Mountain, which was really perhaps the main reason, other than just being a bodyguard, but the main reason that he was there, that nobody could beat him. So in trial by combat, she was going to win. But with one fell swoop, her own son has divested her of that. And now she's got nothing. How does she defend herself in the trial now with the High Sparrow in the church? And that's where we get to this rumour that she's talking to Qyburn about. It really can only be one of two things. I mean, it's either Qyburn's found out from his little birds that the High Sparrow isn't all that he's made out that he is. Perhaps he has some dirt on the guy. And that is a possibility. I'm sort of hoping that it's the wildfire angle that I've already postulated. It would be kind of cool, and we did see an explosion of wildfire in one of Bran's visions that was underground in a tunnel somewhere. So perhaps he saw King's Landing going up. I think there was a previous premonition. I can't remember who it was who had it, but someone I'm sure had a premonition of King's Landing in smoke and ruin with ash falling out of the sky. So it could all be all in one. Perhaps it's the same thing, maybe. I don't know. And then finally we head to Braavos. Now this is the bit that really brought this episode down for me. As I said in the last episode, we see Arya get stabbed twice in the gut with a big dagger. And the dagger is twisted, which widens the wound, and she goes over the side of the bridge, into the canal, drags herself out of the canal, and we see her staggering through the street. What happened to her? Well, we find out that what happened to her is she made her way to that travelling play that she'd been watching, and Lady Crane finds her. Takes her to her apartment, wherever that is in the city, lays her in bed, puts some bandages on her stomach, gives her some milk of the poppy, so some opium, and puts her to sleep. Okay. See, this is where you know, a TV show like this obviously asks you to put aside reality. It's a fantasy TV show. Everyone gets that. However, inside that fantasy realm, certain rules and laws and cause and effects are still going to happen. They are still human beings. She is still a young girl who got stabbed twice in the gut and the dagger was twisted. Now, if that happened to a full-grown man, he would be dead. He wouldn't have been able to stagger around the streets at the end of the last episode, let alone make it to the play, get carried from the play to the apartment, laid in bed, bandages, opium, wake up the next morning, oh, I'm feeling fine again. No. You're dead. Okay, you're going to bleed out, you're going to be in intense pain, but you're dead. There's no way around it. The only possible explanation would have been that Jaqen had saved her perhaps with some magic, or it wasn't Arya in the first place, which was also bandied around last week on the last episode that it wasn't Arya that was stabbed, which I never believed for a second anyway. But the way they got around it is just ridiculous, because not only does she get out of bed the next morning and find Lady Crane now dead because the waif has turned up to finish the job, but
The many-faced god was promised a name. He must always receive what is his. And now he's been promised another name.
she then jumps out of the window, which is one floor up, and starts running full out through the city trying to avoid the waif, who's doing her best Terminator impression here. You know, she walks out, clumps out of the front of the house, turns her head, where is she? There she is, right side her, and starts running off after her. I mean, it's straight out of Terminator, it really is, and it's terrible. And poor Arya is jumping off of buildings and jumping over balustrades and jumping onto fruit carts. It's almost like a poor man's Jason Bourne type chase scene. But she's going through all of this, and she even slides on steps, low steps that are going down, cart. She slides down the steps under the cart and carries on running, whereas the waif just jumps on top of the cart and then carries on, which would have probably been a lot easier for Arya to do. But no, she slides across the floor, concrete steps, stone steps, bang, 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 under the floor, under the cart, and then carries on running. That would have pulled the stitches out of her stomach. That would have ripped her open. But no, carries on running. So it's only at the very end where she staggers into a little hidey hole where we saw her that one time at the end of an episode where she blows out the light and it all goes to dark. This time she's standing there with Needle, one candle, the waif turns up, shuts the door.
It will all be over soon.
So obviously we don't get to see the fight that we've all been hoping to see. Arya finally kick this girl's ass. We don't get to see that. What we do see is Jaqen H'ghar at the Temple of the Faceless Men, and he finds this blood trail that he follows through the temple to the hall with all the faces on. And he sees the waif's face has been placed there, and turns around to find Arya standing there with Needle pointed at his chest.
Finally, a girl is no one.
So not only has Arya survived the chase, fought and killed the waif with all these stomach wounds, but she has also cut the waif's face off and then walked all the way to the temple, got into the temple, nobody seeing her, walked through the temple, put the waif's face on the temple wall, all of that with the wounds that she's still carrying around. And she seems to be perfectly healed now for some reason. God, that milk of the poppy that Lady Crane gave her must be flipping good medicine. But Jaqen H'ghar seems to be almost happy with how things have turned out. Now, a lot of people think that was weak writing, that it was just not explained very well. But I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I love Jaqen H'ghar as a character. And I'm wondering whether this was all some deep plan of his. I mean, when he first met her, she was on the run, she was in disguise, she freed him, and he gave her those 3 lives for freeing him and his 2 friends. And she gave him 3 names, and he killed 3 people for her. But then when they left each other, he gave her that coin that he knew would bring her to Braavos. And he knew that once she was in Braavos, she would come seeking him at the Temple of the Faceless Men, which is exactly what she did. And the second she got there, he started to train her. And now, throughout all of that, throughout all of him saying to her over and over again throughout the last season, 2 seasons, "What is your name?" and her saying, "No one." "What is your name?" "No one." "What is your name?" "No one." Over and over again throughout 2 seasons. Finally, we get to this end point at the end of this episode where he finally says to her, "The girl is finally no one." And she says, "No, I am Arya Stark of House Stark, and I'm going home to Winterfell." She knows who she is now. She's no longer directionless. She's no longer on the run. She knows exactly who she is. She has a fixed point that she's heading for. She has direction, and she's found herself again. And she's done that through Jaqen's training and teachings. And I think that was his plot or his plan all along. And I think that's why he gives her that smile and nod at the end, because he's happy that this girl, who he has a lot of respect for, I feel, possibly almost parental, he looks at her and he can see that, yes, you are finally one whole person now. You've gone through all this crap in your life. You are unsure about everything, but now you have found yourself. And I'm happy for you, and go forth and do what you have to do. But so that's how I read that situation. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. And where's Arya going to go now? Is she going to head off to Winterfell? Who will she find in charge of Winterfell when she gets there? Or we'll have to wait till the next episode for that one, after the Battle of the Bastards. But I'm happy that they're finally moving Arya away from Braavos, because that storyline was getting very boring. It has been very boring. Almost directions. We never knew what the hell was going on with it. So I'm glad to see her back in Westeros, where she had all of the best stuff. All the most juicy plot points for her character were back in Westeros. So we'll see how that goes. But that should be fun to see her meet up again with Sansa and Jon, maybe, or even the Hound. A lot of people wanting to see her and the Hound get back together, although I'm not quite sure how that would work or where they would meet up. But you never know with this show at the moment. It's all over the place. But that's about it. As I said, this show has a lot of good points. It has a lot of bad points. It's going to polarize a lot of fans. Next episode, it looks like the entire episode is going to be the Battle of the Bastards, so the Battle of Winterfell. Who's going to win? Jon Snow or Ramsay Bolton? The way the way it's looking at the moment, Jon Snow is going to go up against Ramsay Bolton with a lot less men. Ramsay should have at least a minimum of 5,000. They're going to fight out on an open plain. Jon's probably got 3,000 tops. So, you know, he's almost fighting at a 2-to-1 deficiency here against Ramsay. So it looks like, as I said earlier, this series has taken away all the deep thoughts and all the conspiracy theories, and it's basically what you see is what you get and get. And this looks like what's going to happen is the fight's going to start. It's going to look bad for Jon's side. It looks like Ramsay's going to win, and then probably Baelish and the Knights of the Vale are going to turn up, appearing over this ridge maybe, and attack Ramsay from the flank or whatever, and wipe them out, and Ramsay loses. That's how it looks like it might going to happen. It's a battle. There can't really be that many twists and turns, because once a battle starts, it's pretty much you just keep fighting until somebody dies. So with this sort of battle, this sort of medieval style battle, there isn't a lot you can really do with it. And we know that Jon doesn't have many men or many resources. There was a slight small bit in the trailer that I saw for next week where it's almost sounded like Jon was trying to get Ramsay to fight him one-on-one to save thousands of lives. Now, Ramsay's not that stupid. He knows that Jon's a better fighter than he is. So I doubt that would go through. It might not be. I might have misread it. But that's in a couple of quick flash scenes I saw with Jon speaking and whatever. That looked like that's what he was proposing. But somebody's got to die next week. You can't have a huge battle like this and it not, if Ramsay dies, if the good guys win, it's going to be at a cost. So who's going to die? Jon? I mean, you hear Jon say, if I fall, don't bring me back. Don't bring me back again. So he doesn't want to be resurrected again. Sansa? Well, she's not going to be in the battle, so she can't die. So Davos, maybe? I hope not. I love Davos. He's one of my favourite characters in the entire show. Perhaps Ghost will die, another direwolf. Oh, there you go. That's perhaps who Arya will meet when she gets back to Westeros. She'll be teamed up again with Nymeria, her direwolf. Now, that would be cool. That I wouldn't mind seeing. But, so for the battle next week, once again, it's all wait and see, but I'm assuming it's going to go that way. Bad for Jon at the beginning. Baelish will turn up with his army, turn the tide, battle gets won. Well, hey, everyone's happy. But somebody's got to bite the bullet. Surely, there's got to be a cost to the win. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But I hope you enjoyed this recap review. I will see you next week for episode 9. And we'll see how the battle turns out. I can't wait to see it. You guys take care. If you enjoyed this recap and review, please share it on your Facebook page. Or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. You guys take care. I'll see you next week.